everybody. Today we have a very special episode, and Peppy is going to be announcing his favorite acupuncturist that's going to be working with us today. And we're going to be talking about holistic health for pets and also all the benefits and things that we can gain from a holistic approach. And we're also going to learn more about Chinese medicine. I can't wait to share that all with you. And Pepe is so excited about this episode as well. And I'm sure your pet's going to love it, all the new information that you're going to learn today. Then make sure that you grab your pen and paper and take notes. Welcome to Be Healthy Podcast, the best way to discover practical tips and holistic health information from amazing experts, holistic doctors, healers, and even real people with incredible health journey stories to inspire you and your pets to become the best version of yourself. I am Anna Marino, a self-healing specialist, a physical therapist, a best-selling author, and a public speaker. I heal myself before, and I know you have the power to heal yourself too. And today, me and Peppy is going to be talking to Dr. Barbara Butchko. She is Peppy acupuncturist, and we absolutely love her. She has been a vet for over 23 years, and she practiced conventional Eastern medicine for 12 years. When she moved to North Carolina, she was introduced to veterinary acupuncture and could immediately see the positive difference it made in the lives and outcomes of her patients. And I totally agree with that. Me and Peppy, saw a big difference, right, Peppy, when we added acupuncture to the treatment. And she now offers in-home acupuncture, and she received her certification in veterinary acupuncture in 2016, and soon after she left general practice to start a mobile acupuncture service. She now offers in-home acupuncture, therapeutic laser, Chinese herbal therapy, and dietary consultations to pets in and around Charlotte and North Carolina. Then Dr. Barbara Butchko, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting, and it's nice to see you and Pepe today.
Pepe, say hello.
Hi, Pepe.
Pepe's not sure what's happening. Say hello, Pepe.
Poor guy.
All right, you can rest. All right, let's get started here. Then one of the most popular questions that some of our members had is, what is the difference between Western and Eastern medicine? And if you can talk more about this idea of what is a holistic approach. Let's start with that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because the Eastern and Western medicine are radically different, but they work very well together. So essentially, Chinese medicine is something that's developed over the last 3,000 years. And it developed with this concept that in order to have health, we have to have balance. And the actual theory of traditional Chinese medicine is vast and beautiful, and everything is linked between the seasons and our bodies and our personalities and ailments that we might be predisposed to. All of that is linked in traditional Chinese medicine. So in Eastern medicine, the goal is balance and prevention, where in Western medicine, we are more focused on figuring out what the problem is, fixing the problem, and moving on. And we don't focus as much on overall health, balance, and prevention. So I think the two work beautifully together. And I think you really need both to have a full healthy picture. But traditional Chinese medicine, or Eastern medicine, has 5 main branches. So of course, acupuncture is one of them, and that's what everyone thinks of, but that's not all. There are also Chinese herbs that are very important. Dietary therapy in Eastern medicine is extremely important. The 4th branch is Tui Na, which is a form of therapeutic massage, essentially. And the last one is Qigong, which is a form of moving meditation. So those 5 things are the things that are all needed in Eastern medicine to to create balance and keep us healthy moving forward. So when we look at those 5 things, obviously acupuncture, herbs, diet, and exercise we can do with our dogs, but people look at something like the Qigong, which is the moving meditation, and that's something that's harder to translate to our pets. But actually, if you take them for a lovely walk, you're not rushing them out of the morning, right before you go to work, you're taking them for a concentrated walk, you're letting them sniff, you're letting them move. That for them is a form of moving meditation. So even our canine patients can take advantage of all 5 branches of Chinese medicine.
Oh, I love that. And I think it's so important for owners to hear that when we are stressed and we are anxious and like hurry the dogs or the pets, like they can feel it and like allowing them to take their time. That's their time to have that freedom when they're walking and give you that permission for them to actually enjoy the moment. And maybe you as a owner can also enjoy the moment and stop and smell the flowers. I always kind of like when I look at Peppy stopping and smelling the flowers, like for me, that was a good reminder to like, okay, am I moving too fast? Can I just pause here? Can I smell the flower too? And I think that's such a good reminder for us that it's okay to slow down a little bit for ourselves. And of course, the pets will definitely benefit that and
Oh,
the movements.
100%. And even dogs that need to walk, say for rehab therapy or that are on a weight loss program and they need to walk, I definitely encourage owners to give them at least 5 minutes at the beginning and the end of the walk, just to do whatever they want, just to sniff, roll, just meander, because I think they need that time. And you're exactly right. They pick up on our energy so much. So if we can take a breath and calm down, they can take a breath and calm down, and then everybody's healthier.
Well, let's link that right into stress management because I do a lot of work on stress management for adults,
Mhm.
but I know with the holistic approach for pets, there is also the consideration of the stress management. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the stress management for pets?
Yes. So there are definitely things that you can do directly for your pet, and we will absolutely talk about those. But I think it's important for owners to really internalize how much their energy affects the energy of their pet. So if you have a pet that's very, very anxious, oftentimes we'll find that the owners themselves are very anxious as well. So taking care of yourself first is always a good idea because that will benefit your pet. But beyond that, there are definitely things that you can do. Keeping their schedule somewhat routine so that there isn't a lot of variability is really good for most dogs. Making sure they get regular, non-rushed exercise, like we just talked about. And kind of watching them and seeing what their triggers might be and helping them avoid those. So especially if you're getting a dog that is not a puppy, they're coming to you with potentially a lot of anxieties, a lot of things that have happened to them in the past that they're bringing into your home. And it's really important to just be patient and take time with them to try to figure out what those triggers are and help them adjust to things. And there are some fantastic behavior trainers out now that are not focused on obedience and making sure you have the perfect dog, but are more focused on your relationship with your dog. So if you do bring a dog into your home that's super stressed and has a lot of history and a lot of triggers, finding somebody in your community that can come in and really help you gently work through all of that is excellent. But other things like a consistent, healthy diet helps too. And this is where traditional Chinese medicine comes into play because we all have different personalities and we all have different energies. And for some of us, some foods trigger our bodies getting hotter than they should or getting colder, and these things can trigger anxieties. So working with a holistic veterinary medicine practitioner that can help you figure out what diets are best for your dog can really help. And then we talked about, before we got started, different acupressure points that you can use to help relieve stress, but just general massage helps too. So just sitting with them, taking your time with them, doing some just gentle massage can be very helpful. But if you're looking for specific acupressure points that you can add into your massage, one of the really good ones that you and I talked about is right behind their ears. So if you're running your finger along the back of their ears, your finger will fall into a little divot, and you can just gently put pressure in that little divot in a clockwise fashion. And that's a really good acupressure point to help relieve stress. The other one is right on the tippy top of the head. If you follow the line of their skull, just to the point where you're going to sort of drop off to the back and just gently massage, but you want to massage from the nose to the tail. So from front to back, just gently with light pressure, that can be super soothing.
Mm.
And you'll be able to tell if they like it because they'll just sort of relax into it.
Oh yeah, when the dogs are really good with boundaries. Like if they don't like something, they usually walk away from you.
Oh, 100%. And they're so much more intuitive than we are. So if they don't like something, just let it go. It's usually not best to force them to do something because they know what's right for them better than we seem to know what's right for ourselves.
That's very true. I think we have a lot to learn from pets because they're very intuitive. And I notice like when the more we learn about our intuition, creating healthy boundaries, the more we go back to the wisdom, the inner wisdom of like, yes, I know what's good for me now. It doesn't matter if that's good for everybody else. It's not good for me, then I'm just not going to do it. It's okay to
Exactly.
also listening to those inner wisdom, those boundaries for our health. And I think again the pets are a really good reminder because they're really good at that. And those are fantastic points. I wonder if humans can do those points as well, because I kind of want to do it.
Oh, absolutely. The ear points. And then my acupuncturist always puts points inside of my ears. So any sort of massage that you want to do on your ears can be extremely soothing.
I love it. The other thing, couple things come to where you're saying there. One is remembering that pets petting your pet is actually really good for the nervous system. That when we're thinking about, and I believe that goes both ways. I believe that it's good for the pet as much as it's good for us human, but it's a really good soothing, like you activating the you activate the ventral part of the vagal nerve,
Mhm.
that kind of the interaction with others, and the stroke of your hand activate the sensory on your hand. And there's so many benefits to actually petting your pet, not just for your pet itself, for yourself. They're highly encouraged. If you haven't doing that enough, make sure that you do that. The only thing I always tell my patient is don't use your pets as a source of release. Like you want to
Mhm.
show, because they can feel us. They are empathetic as well. They feel feeling
Oh,
really,
yeah.
really very anxious, and you're like go work on yourself first
Uh-huh.
and then come to be with your pets because you don't want to also give the energy to them. I think that's also really important to have that self-awareness, to not dumping our feelings into our pets.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just go and getting yourself grounded first and then coming to your pet and just being able to interact in a peaceful way for both of you. I think is perfect.
Yeah, it's a nice soothing technique for both of us, right? And the other thing that you mentioned that I want to kind of make a little link to it is the trauma.
Mhm.
I think it's so important, especially when the dog is adopted. But even if they're not adopted, like people has trauma all the time, pets has trauma all the time.
Mhm.
I think it's important for us as an owner to be able to recognize those traumas and honor that the same way that we want it to be honored,
Mhm.
get triggered. And I remember a story when we first got Peppy. We got him, he was about 4 years old, and he came from a family. And I have no idea what happened to him, but Peppy was terrified of male.
Mm.
I remember when my husband come close to him, he was starting to get so anxious and he started to like crunching to the corner. And we kind of allowed him to take his time before, like, instead of forcing him to be like, hey, this is your father now. Like, oh, like this is your new home. And I think it was just so beautiful to watching like his relationship with my husband to grow because
Mhm.
honor and respect that. And when we first got him, even if we were walking on the street and he saw a guy, especially for hats, for something with like the hat really triggered him. And now he has absolutely no problem.
Oh,
Now
wow.
walking outside, he can go to the guys and he go to people with hats, and it's like no more trauma. Then it's just like humans. we can overcome those traumas if we honor that space and not push and force and judge, and just allowing that to become more comfortable and creating that safe space, then things just gonna start to release. And I think those good reminders for the owners as well.
Oh, I think so. And I like what you just said, not forcing, pushing, or judging, because I think that's where we go wrong with animals that come into our homes with history, is that we force them into situations to try to habituate them to it. And that's usually the wrong way to go. And sometimes they can never overcome it, and that's okay, as long as you can adjust your lifestyle around that. I had a dog who had a very bad experience with a child and did not like children, and we just kept her away from children and we were fine. And sometimes you just have to make those sacrifices if you can.
When I think about the triggers as well, I'm curious about that. Like, why does animals, like some dogs, they really like it, and then some dogs, like they don't want anything to do with that? Is that like more like a trauma response, or they're just like personality? Like, what is your um
So don't want anything to do with what in particular, like children or?
with dogs, like
Oh,
dogs?
with other dogs.
Dogs, they're really like Pep is kind of like that. Some dogs, he's super friendly, he plays, he loves it. And then with other dogs, and I hear that very common from other
Mhm.
owners, it's like, oh, they're very friendly with some dogs, but they're not friendly with other dogs.
Mhm.
Any reason like that comes to
So
me?
I think there are a couple of reasons. I think definitely history is a big part of that. If they've had bad experiences previously, absolutely that can be part of it. A lot of it, I do think, is personality. So kind of coming back to the whole idea of traditional Chinese medicine, one of the most interesting parts to read about is the five elements. And in Chinese medicine, the five elements are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And we all have personalities that fit into those things. And and you can see it when you know what those five personality types are and you figure out what you are, you can tell how you interact with different people differently. And you can tell, like, that personality type is really difficult for me to be around. Dogs are the same way. So if you have somebody who's, say, a water dog that comes up to a wood dog, that can be an uncomfortable situation for them. So some of it is energetic. Some
Mhm.
of it is just that they respond to certain animals in different ways because of the energy that they're all putting out there.
That makes so much sense. It's just like people, like some people you're more friendly, some people it's like, no, stay on the other room, don't want anything to do with you.
Exactly.
Sense, absolutely. Perfect. Okay, then let's flip the page a little bit and go to
Okay.
diet, because I
Oh, yeah.
very, very common question. They tell us a little bit more about from a holistic approach, what are your recommendations? What do you believe that's the best options or suggestions? Like, give us a little bit more information about the diet part.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start by saying that if you put five different veterinarians in a room and ask them about diets, they're all going to have five different opinions. So this is just my opinion.
Mhm.
So what I've seen in practice and what I know from reading and experience is that our commercial diets, particularly the dry diets, they are wonderful for ease for us. They're wonderful for stool consistency, but they're not good for overall health and longevity for pets. Um, the more heavily processed a food is, the more pro-inflammatory it is. So when we're feeding them dry kibble, we're potentially causing inflammation in their bodies and leading to a whole host of problems. So we find that dogs do much, much better on fresher foods. And that can be anything from actually cooking for your dog yourself to some of the commercial fresher diets that are out there, or even canned diets are generally better than kibble. Essentially, anything that's kind of closer to what a dog would eat in the wild is going to be better for you than the fresh, dry kibble. So I'm a huge proponent of cooking for dogs. If you were to choose to do that, you would want to do that with a veterinary professional who can help you make sure that you're doing a balanced meal, because there are definitely nutrients we want to make sure that they're getting. But there are also some great fresher foods that you can buy commercially. I think Pepe's on one that's really good, that serve the same purpose. They're offering them fresh ingredients. They're not processed. They're not getting those inflammatory ingredients, and they do so much better over time, from everything from weight to kidney health to just general aging. All of that they do better without that dry kibble. So that's my soapbox on food, is try to get your pets off of dry kibble.
Mm,
Even cats, 100% cats should not be on dry kibble if you can avoid it. Canned food is by far the best for them. With cats, I'm really wary of cooking for them because they definitely have some nutrients they need, that's harder to make sure that they get, but canned food for cats is really the way to go.
that's so good, so good. And we went through this journey with Pepe in the beginning when he started having the symptoms. He had some liver problems a few years ago, and I did this whole researching on food for pets. And if we look again, it's very similar to human. We don't want to process food. Like the less processed, the best.
Mhm.
And going back to what you say, as far as what are you eating, and I think it's important for us to also realize that not everything that's good for human is good for pets.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people, when they think about, oh, I'm just gonna cook for my pet, they think about cooking for human, and that is a big difference on that. Then totally agree with you with actually consulting a healthcare professional veterinarian that's qualified and knows the percentage and all the nutrition, that we actually not creating more harm than good. And we noticed, we started working with Dr. Harvey a few years ago, and we noticed a huge difference on his lab values, on his weight, his coat, like a lot of the symptoms, like the itchiness. He was having a lot of allergy back then. A lot of the symptoms changed, just changing the diets. Then whatever diets you guys choose, just try to get as healthy as you can from
Mhm.
that point of view, and try to get away from the processed food. I think that's especially for the kibble, like one of the things I learned, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the amount of protein and fat on kibble are causing a lot of problems.
Mhm.
And that was something that we when the vet prescribed some of the percentage of fat and protein, I remember checking every single brand, and I think we found one brand that had one type that was closer.
Mhm.
And I was like, it doesn't exist. Like you can't find that on Kibo. And
Right.
is that correct?
100%. And I do want to say, I feel like, with anything, moderation is key. So sometimes feeding things other than kibble are cost prohibitive, particularly if you have a huge dog. So if it's not possible, that is okay. If you can just replace a little of the kibble and add a little bit of the fresher food, you'll still be doing better than just kibble by itself. So, everything in moderation and balance, but 100% kibble typically does not have the right nutrients for them. Now, there are some medical conditions for which some of the prescription diets,
Oh,
at least temporarily, can be the best. So I don't want to cut them out entirely, but the things that you're buying at the pet store are not going to be the best.
yeah. And I think that's a good point also, because that was something that we kind of learned through the journey of healing pets, is also incorporating like raw fruits and vegetables into the.
Oh, mhm.
Every time that I'm eating a carrot, I give him a carrot. Pepe loves carrots. It's kind of like one of his favorite treats. He likes blueberry, strawberry, watermelon. Oh my gosh, this dog go crazy eating watermelon. It's the most funny thing ever. And they enjoy the raw, more like kind of like fresh.
Mhm.
Well, even if it's in addition to the kibble itself.
Absolutely. And there are two ingredients that I like to tell owners to use. One, if their animals will eat mushrooms, just throwing fresh mushrooms on their food. Mushrooms are fantastic cancer fighters, so they're great, particularly for our older dogs. And then for teeth and breath, a little fresh parsley on the food goes a long way. So you can add, in addition to your fruits that Pepe's getting, if he likes mushrooms and parsley, you can add those too.
Oh, I'm going to take a note of that. Guys, please make sure that you take a note. That's a really good tip there. And is the mushroom cooked or raw?
You can do either. Usually raw is just fine. And technically, shiitakes are the best. But if you've got portobellas or just regular mushrooms, you can throw those on too. And we're not talking about huge amounts, just kind of topping it like you would a sundae with your little mushrooms. That's
There we go. Nice. Oh, I'm sure they're gonna love that. I'm gonna get some parsley mushroom for you, Peppy. Over there. Okay, then let's shift the conversation to Chinese medicine. I know some people are waiting for this part.
okay.
Can you tell us more about Chinese medicine? How does that work?
Okay. So when we're talking more about the Chinese medicine specifically, we're talking more about the herbs and the acupuncture. So we'll start with herbs because I think it's those are fascinating. So what I love about Chinese herbs is that they can be used to treat many of the conditions that we see in Western medicine. So there are herbs that are amazing for the liver, amazing for the kidneys, for the heart. They typically don't work as fast as Western medications do, but they, over time, do what you want them to do without the side effects. So many of our Western medications, what we've done is we've found a positive effect from an ingredient, and we've potentiated it to maximize that effect, but then we've also caused all these potential side effects. With Chinese medicine, the formulas are typically in balance to mitigate those side effects, and they work more gently. So you get the benefit without the side effects. Herbal medicine is something you definitely want someone who's trained in Chinese medicine to do. There is so much information out there online about herbs that you can give your dogs, and not all of it is accurate. And not all sources are good either. You want to get, there's potential for lead toxicity in some Chinese medicines. You want to make sure that you're getting your herbs from a reputable source. So finding a veterinarian that can prescribe them for you is really the best way to go with that. And then, of course, there's acupuncture. And acupuncture, which is, my passion, is incredibly safe. And we can use it to treat many, many conditions in the body, everything from anxiety to osteoarthritis, internal medicine conditions, seizures, all of that can benefit from acupuncture. And if you think your listeners would be interested, I can kind of talk them through the science of acupuncture and how that works a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
it's super helpful because I think a lot of people think that acupuncture is like this thing out there.
uh-huh.
Like, no, acupuncture is a really old medicine and so much science behind. But yeah, please share a little bit of the science with us.
Okay, perfect. So, of course, acupuncture, like Chinese medicine, has been used for 3,000 years, and it evolved gradually. And it basically evolved by practitioners realizing that if they applied pressure at a certain part of the body, they could affect change elsewhere. And they developed these maps of energy meridians that run through the body. And those are what we use essentially to treat with acupuncture. Acupuncture was introduced into this country around the Nixon administration, actually. When Nixon went over to open up trade in China, one of his aides got sick and needed an appendectomy and had acupuncture as part of his post-operative treatment. He came back and wrote about it, and that just exploded interest in acupuncture in this country. So we've been doing it in the West for a long time. But science is just sort of now catching up to how it works, because we've been seeing clinical efficacy, but now we're trying to figure out how it works. So there are a couple of things that we know. Researchers know that most acupuncture points lie in spots of the body where we have hotbeds of nerve endings and blood vessels. So when we're using the acupuncture needles, they're completely sterile, single-use needles, and we're causing a little sterile microtrauma right where the body is primed to bring in blood supply. So if you have sore tissue or injured tissue, or you need to bring blood supply to an internal organ, those needles help stimulate blood supply to a certain area. We also know when we're putting those needles in that we're triggering nerves at those spots, because researchers have been putting us into functional MRI machines and watching our brains as they stimulate the needles, and you can see changes in our brains. So we're stimulating those nerves as well. That really comes into play when you have dogs or cats, horses or people that have any form of paralysis or nerve damage, because it's one thing that we can safely do to stimulate those nerves and try to get things going again. We also know that if you could watch the insertion of an acupuncture needle under a microscope, almost immediately when we put that needle in, Pepe's little collagen fibers wrap around that. and that triggers an anti-inflammatory response. So we're getting a really good localized anti-inflammatory response. And last but not least, we know that when we put those needles in, we get a release of our own body's natural endorphins. So you get a release of calming hormones, hormones that are going to help you heal, help you rest, and that facilitates healing. So we've got the blood stimulation, nerve stimulation, anti-inflammatory activity, and the endorphin release, all working together to make acupuncture effective.
Who does not want that? I want.
Right? And it's usually not painful. So sometimes, and this is important to know if you're thinking about adding acupuncture for your pet, 9 times out of 10, when we're doing the acupuncture, they barely feel it. Every once in a while, you'll be putting a needle in a spot where their nerves are already stimulated. They've already got a pain response or already got inflammation. And they may feel it, but it's what we call a zinging sensation. They feel it for a second. It sort of zings up their nerves and then it abates. So it's typically not painful.
Yes, and I can attest to that. Someone that done acupuncture myself. It's like, because I'm needle phobic and I can do acupuncture. And I think that says a lot. It's like you can barely feel it, except some of those specific points. But yeah, I love the concept of acupuncture. I think that is so much science and it makes so much sense. And you can see it. Like Pepe, when he finished the treatment with you, he's just like so mellow and so relaxed. Jealous. I wanted that too.
Well, and that's what's so wonderful about it, because I think people sometimes suspect that the benefits of acupuncture are a placebo effect,
Mhm.
but Pepe isn't susceptible to the placebo effect.
Exactly.
So,
Pets are not. Then they
yeah.
feel like you can see that they change their energy, they're more active, they're more playful. You can see they're not like dragging themselves as much, less
Mhm.
anxiety. Then I have seen so many benefits from acupuncture with Peppy. And yeah, I'm totally a believer and I totally recommend it. And of course, Dr. Barbara is definitely the best one. That if you can find her close sure that you search for her because she is absolutely amazing.
Oh, you're kind.
Absolutely. It has been such a wonderful experience to work with her, Pep. Definitely attest that. Then if you guys are close to her, make sure that you contact her because she is absolutely incredible. And okay, fantastic. Now we covered the Chinese, we got the herbs, and is there any contraindication for acupuncturists?
Yes. So there are only 3 things we need to worry about. One, you do have to be careful in pregnancy, because you don't want to stimulate anything or affect the fetuses. But no, it's generally safe to use in pregnancy, but you have to be careful. You have to be careful in cancer. We use it in dogs with cancer all the time. We are usually using it to mitigate the side effects of chemotherapy or to help stimulate appetite. But you have to be careful. You can't put a needle too close to a tumor because we don't want to bring that blood supply to a tumor. So oftentimes, particularly in cases where dogs have limps and we're worried about maybe a bone tumor, your veterinarian or acupuncturist is probably going to ask you to get an x-ray first before we start putting needles around those bones, because we want to make sure there's no chance there's cancer there. And then lastly, we do have to worry about dogs and cats in particular eating needles. So we have to be very careful when we do it. It's not a contraindication, but something we have to be careful about. So that's why I love doing it in their homes, because we can give them our 100% attention and just make sure we keep track of all those needles at all times, because they could easily lick something out. But that's, knock on wood, never happened to me. We just have to worry about it. But in general, it's extremely safe. The only other thing that I would say we have to be careful about with acupuncture, and this is more for younger dogs that are getting acupuncture for an injury, sometimes they do feel so good after acupuncture that they will go and injure themselves. So we always tell owners, really watch them closely for the first 24 hours or so. They may feel like they can run a mile, but they can't. They shouldn't do it. So that's another thing we have to be careful about.
That is a definitely common problem with adults as well. I teach my patients because they get out of the table and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm pain free," and then
Uh-huh.
a lot more than they have been doing the last 3 years, and it's like, "Oh, like
Right. You have to work up to these things gradually. Yeah.
build up the strengthening for sure." Fantastic. And if you're listening and you are in Charlotte, North Carolina area, make sure that you contact Barbara. But if you are not,
Uh-huh.
Any way for people to find other amazing practitioners like you?
Yes. So more than 10% of veterinarians in the country are trained to do acupuncture now. And you want to find somebody that's certified. So this is one thing that most people don't know. You do have to be a veterinarian to do acupuncture on animals. And there are two programs that can certify veterinarians to do it. And you definitely want somebody who's certified. There's a website that your listeners can go to where they can search for a certified veterinary acupuncturist by zip code. So, or excuse me, yeah, by zip code. And the website is TCVM. So it's traditional Chinese veterinary medicine, tcvm.net. And you can pop your zip code in there and it'll tell you who does acupuncture. The vast majority of veterinarians are doing it in their clinics, which is a wonderful way to do it. I feel for my patients, they do better in their homes because it's a little bit more peaceful, but that's not available to everybody. But there are a lot of veterinarians in traditional practices that offer acupuncture in addition to everything else. So your own veterinarian may already do it. You can just look to them first. And if they don't do it, you can go to this website.
Yes, and if you are in Charlotte, how can people contact you?
So you can go to my website, meridianmobilevet.com. And of course, we've got a link to a website, phone number there, and we'll get people set up.
All right. And if you are considering getting acupuncture or are looking for a second opinion, want some more information on herbs, on diet, anything extra, I highly, highly recommend Dr. Barbara. Then please contact her.
Aw.
Now that you don't forget, and your pet's going to be really, really grateful for that. And I will put the links on the show notes. Then, if you're listening and you don't have the show notes, make sure that you are going to the website www.behealthywithanna/podcast for all the links and extra resources for you. Thank you so, so much for joining us today and sharing all these wonderful tips. I think everybody got a lot of ideas and things that they can do at home, practical ideas already. Then thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Barbara.
You're so welcome.
All right. And thank you so much if you're listening this today. Thank you so much for listening to us. If you enjoy it, make sure you subscribe to our channel, leave us a review, and share our podcast with anyone that you know needs to improve their dogs or their pets' health. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you can get notified whenever we upload a new episode. And if you are ready to reclaim your life and heal from chronic pain, join Be Health Academy. Be Health Academy is a science-based program that offers accountability, pain science education, stress management techniques, ways to shift your mindset, increase body awareness, techniques to release the trauma from the body, and so much more. With the right resources, you have the ability to heal yourself. And I promise you, your pet will appreciate that. And you don't have to do it alone. Let me show you the way. Join Be Healthy Academy. And that's it for today. Keep it up with the good work. I'll talk to you later. And until then, be healthy.